And welcome to this Making Your Own Munch with Stephen Hartley. Now about 3 or 4 weeks ago I started making my own biscuits because I didn't like the feeling sometimes after eating only a couple of biscuits. It gave me a horrible queasy feeling. And I'd always suspected that there's some crap in there. And I also partly blamed my BO on what was in these biscuits and things. And since making my own biscuits the last 3 or 4 weeks, I haven't smelt that sort of battery acid BO at all. And I'm rather liking my own munch better than what I can buy in the shop. So you see here, what I've just started off with earlier is I took some butter out the fridge. Because to work with the butter, it needs to be soft. And I can do pretty much everything with a wooden spoon and this. Hopefully it is soft enough. Right, so I'm going to turn the oven on to gas mark 3, which is low heat. And I've got a rack in the middle shelf. Well, it's on actually the highest, but it's in the middle of the oven. I'm going to start here. Now the butter is still a little bit hard, but we'll get away with it. And I'm also doing this to cut down on the amount of washing up that needs to be done. Because let's face it, if you're making your own munch every couple of days, you don't want the just to be buried under your washing up. Right, so as for the ingredients, I don't measure, I don't weigh, but what we're looking to get here, we're going to use flour and oats, call those your dry ingredients, and you want about an equal measure of in weight of your flour and oats compared to your butter and your sugar, and I'm using about half of each. Now I'm going to add, this one is ground ginger. I've had this probably about 10 years, still good, don't use it very often, but I'm using it now making these biscuits. About that much. And the amounts I'm putting in here, you're not really going to taste it. And some ground cinnamon. It's just for sort of, make it a bit healthier. Bit of taste. Those two things work quite well. Right, then I'll add my flour. Just normal, plain, self-raising flour. Not that it does much raising. That'll do. And we want to get this all mixed up. I think I've got too much flour in it, it does vary. I should probably pause this because it's going to take some time to get it all together. Oh yes, salt. Some nice sea salt. Because that's usually the trick with all these takeaway outlets and everything. To make a tasty meal, we just tend to add salt and sugar. That's why you like the takeaway, that's why you like to bite into it. It's just basically simple stuff. So I should set the timer because I put the oven on. I need to heat it up for about 15 minutes, so it's already been a couple of minutes. Put it on 14. Right, I'm still doing it, but I realised if I wanted to, I could probably speed it up and have to edit anyway. So just working through the butter, getting all the lumps out. Now the mixing together is really the most important part of this, if you want a nice tasty bit of munch at the end. So, I've usually got the radio on, so while I'm doing this, listening to the radio.
and we'll rub it out. Now, even more importantly, when I do the sugar, because I use soft brown sugar, you really need to get all the lumps out. I have used too much flour in this, but it's not. It's going to mean the biscuit isn't as nice as the last one I made. The last one I made was just perfection. It really was better than anything I've ever bought, especially with a mass-produced product. I mean, sometimes you buy these chocolate tiffins or whatever. You get hold of them in the farm shop or at the co-op. You know, they're handmade. They're very nice. They're extremely expensive. You know, you're paying like £5 for this sort of the amount of quantity I'm going to make. You'd be paying £5 for it, which is a lot of money. Who's got £5 to spend much? Whereas this is costing me. I mean, the oats are cheap as anything. The flour is cheap. The butter, I mean, butter's now up to sort of £2 a slab. The butter is expensive, but that would make so 250 grams of butter. I'm making 3 or 4 of these. So yeah, it's about 50p in butter. And the fats are the most important ingredient in a way. And when you buy, you know, we're all getting aware now that palm oil and things we've seen it everywhere. Now the thing is with palm oil, you just really don't know what it's been through. I mean, originally palm oil would have been carried by hand by these Africans just looking to make a couple of bucks. Could be some engine oil mixed in there, you never know, do you? Right, now ready to do the sugar. Soft brown sugar, dark brown soft. The skill here is opening them without splitting the bag. Pull up any loose bits. And I want to use about that much. Probably do. I use too much flour, so you're not going to compensate. So this takes a while, because what's really annoying is if you get a lump of sugar and then after you've cooked it, that bit is like really hard. You just get a crunchy bit of sugar and you've wasted mixing that sugar in with the other ingredients. It's not as good. So this is what I'm going to make sure that I do get all the lumps out. So it's all blended in. Definitely done too much. Too much of something. Then it's no train track disaster. There's some hard lumps. So this would be easier with white sugar, but as you can see, it's all becoming quite fine. There's going to be a couple of lumps left. I'm going to get rid of every single one of them. Right, I'm not a perfectionist, so I think that I have to do. That'll do. Next ingredient, cashew nuts. Now these, I just want to take a handful. I could use a bit extra because I've done too much flour, but I just want to crush them. Just break them with your fingers rather than cut them, because when you cut them you get sharp edges.
And sometimes, you know, nuts can give you, if they're sharp chopped nuts, I've noticed that's not good for the gums. So sometimes they can be like a knife in your mouth. I mean, when I make this, I don't even notice there's nuts in it. I mean, cashew nuts don't particularly taste an awful lot.
They're good fat content, so it's adding to the butter side, so that's good. Takes a little while to crush them. You can feel the oil content on your fingers. And they look, you know, they look nice as well. You're looking at your munch afterwards, and you see a sign of one or two of these. Looks like white chocolate. You've got to be careful not to use too much of these. I think they make you a bit gassy, but no real harm. I think it's the cashews, so I've cut down on the amount of cashews that I would use. Good. Stir them in like that. Okay, oven's warmed. Like I said, gas mark 3, so quite a low heat. That's too much. Okay, right. Now I'm going to get the tray ready. Baking tray. And some baking paper, you can reuse it. I've used this one a few times now. Still good. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is add some milk. Carefully. And this will bond it all together. I have made biscuits like just this. You could, if you're doing like a shortbread, you just put that in there and tap it down. This is making more of a sort of a, I guess it's like a cookie mixture. And the milk will bond it all together. And I noticed on the last one, it was just quite a hard lump that I was left with. And I dumped that in the baking tray and patted it down a bit. And it was perfect. Perfect. Really? We'll need a bit more. Because I've made so much, it is going to be really tough. You're annoying me. I'm trying not to get my hands in it now because I've been washing grease off my fingers. I'd rather have in my munch. But this looks like it'll be enough. This must have been good. It's interesting that, you know, doing this or making bread or a sauce, it's similar to making cement. So you see how some skills are transferable. They've got different thicknesses for different things. Now if I added a couple of eggs to this, I could make it a cake. That's all you need to do. And that would then be a much runnier mixture. So, just dump it in. bit annoying, this bit. So, actually the metal spoon is probably better for this. I've got more mixture than the last one I made. The last one I made was quite thick in the middle. And it was perfect. It really was. Which is why I'm sharing the recipe with you all. And the method. See? You can experiment yourself. It's fun to experiment yourself. You may on occasion have to eat something which is burnt or just not that brilliant. Something that keeps falling apart or breaks your teeth. That's what I've done wrong on a few occasions, is just, you know, too high oven temperature, too long, and it's just too crispy. That's quite a thick one, but it will do. The oven is ready. Gas mark 3, and I'm going to put it in for, what did I do last one? Taste test. It's good. So I'm now going to stick this in the oven, and I'll set the timer for 14 minutes. Turn it, and then see if it needs a bit more. Right, so we've had the first 14.5 minutes in the oven. Gas mark 3, and as we can see, starting to look like diarrhea. So turn it round, stick it back in. I've already reset the timer. So now we do the chocolate topping. Now originally when I was doing the chocolate, I was getting all fancy. I was melting it with butter and other things. But what I've noticed is once you put the chocolate on the biscuit, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to use some of this as well. It depends what I've got. I've used up all my, you know, those sort of quality street chocolates and things, the toffees that no one eats. I would cut them up in squares, and when I take it out of the oven is when I'll put the chocolate on, so it just melts on top. So all that faffing about melting it first is just a waste of time. So what I do is just cut it up quite small so that it will melt easily when I chuck it on the top. Just try not to cut my fingers off. As you can see, my kitchen side is a bit messy. I was making pizza yesterday. When I make the pizza dough, then I add turmeric, and that's the yellow stain in there which I haven't got round to wiping away yet. Right, it's now been in the oven another 14.5 minutes. And by the way, I just had my timer set on ½ minute because I tend to brew my coffee for 4.5 minutes. I brew my tea for 2.5 minutes. For some reason, I just find the ½ minute I use more. Right, so it's been in the oven twice, 14.5 minutes each side, and I think I want to put it in another 5 minutes now. Just because that's what I think. See you in a minute. Okay, it's now been in another 5.5 minutes. Yeah, looks good. Turn the oven off. Looks good to me. Right. So obviously it needs to cool. And this is where we do the chocolate bit. So quite a lot of chocolate really. It's cheap, that dark chocolate. And as I was saying before, I used to try and get all fancy with it, but once the chocolate melts and blends with the biscuit, tastes just great. Look for those chocolatey bits, and I just spread it around. And back of my teaspoon. Can you see that? Yes. Now that will just melt. Get a bit of this. Pop it on this one in nice big chunks. And I'll spread that around when it's melted. That'll do. You don't need a lot. And so I'll just come back in a minute and spread it around a bit more. That's already melting on there nicely. It'll melt and go in to the biscuit a bit. It's the best. So I won't eat any until it's cooled, so I probably won't have any until this evening or maybe after lunch. A little taster. But that'll last me a good 2 days. And I'll have no desire for any other sort of munch. I'll spread those out as well when they're a bit more melted. And then
I won't take it out of the thing now, but basically you can just take it out. It's still a little bit bendy. See that? So this recipe should give you a nice chewy yet crunchy, chocolatey sweet, buttery. Don't even notice the cashews. Oats, you wouldn't even notice they were there. Voila!